People like quotes. They take a lot of beliefs and philosophies and simplify them into sentences that you can put on your computer desktop or share at parties to make yourself sound smart. In my training, I've also come across quotes that actually helped me, that inspired me to go further and delve deeper. So today I'm making a list of quotes that have affected me. I train in Kaiju Kembo, but if you do any kind of fight training, take a look at these quotes and see if they affect you the same way they've reached out to me. I'm trying to avoid cliche quotes and quotes that have been beaten into the ground. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. I'm also going to avoid James Mattis quotes, because even though they're awesome and I love them, they can also be very incriminating to somebody just getting started on YouTube. The following 6 quotes are quotes that have had an impact on my training, and I hope they can have an impact on yours too. So let's start it up. Number 6, improvise, overcome, adapt. The U.S. Marines. This was originally a Marine slogan, but I first heard it in the Clint Eastwood movie Heartbreak Ridge. And in Kaiju Kembo, this is how we face a lot of our challenges. Everyone has their strengths, but sometimes your strong point fails you. Do you give up? Hell no. You improvise. You do something else. You persevere, and you overcome. You adapt to the challenge and keep adapting until you come out on top. In a fight, this translates to adapting to the fighter in front of you and changing the techniques that you use. Just the same way that Kaiju Kembo threw out the techniques it didn't like when it was first created. And in real life, outside of fighting, at work, at home, with family and everything else, it means the same thing. Adapt. Guess Bruce Lee was right about being water. Damn it. Number 5, Nana Korobi Yaoki. This is a traditional Japanese saying that translates to fall 7 times, stand up 8. I'm breaking my cliche rule here, but I think a lot of people outside of Japan actually haven't heard this saying. I also haven't figured out the math in this one yet, and that bugs me, but I still like it. This saying encapsulates the whole point of the Rocky movies. Take the hits and keep going. But recently I've also heard another explanation for it. What happened in the past doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next. There's a whole essay waiting to be written there about second chances. But for fighting, this also reminds me of another quote. It doesn't matter who hits first, it matters who hits last. Number 4, it depends. Ryan Hoover at Aperture Fight Focus. I've often quoted my own instructor, Ron Esteller, when I say, no technique works 100% of the time on 100% of the people. There's also a Japanese saying that goes junin toiro, which can be simplified to mean different strokes for different folks, but in advertisement here has been used to mean everybody's an individual, everybody's different, which is kind of odd for a Japanese company to say. More recently, Ryan Hoover of Aperture Fight Focused has combined these ideas into the much more succinct, it depends. Is a straight cross the best technique to the head? Well, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on whether or not the guy's wearing a motorcycle helmet. It depends on how much experience you both have with boxing. It depends on how healthy, young, and uninjured your hand happens to be at that time. Is it safer to take the guy down and wait him out until police arrive? It depends. Are kicks a waste of time? It depends. As far as I'm concerned, it depends is sage advice for everything from choosing a technique, to choosing a strategy, to choosing your workout routine. Sure, some techniques have a higher success rate. Kaiju Kembo was created based on using those techniques, but life doesn't always go the way you expect it to, and fighting styles change over time. Better learn to improvise, overcome, and adapt. Ryan Hoover himself said, "It's something I've said for many years, and I'm sure I'm not the first." But it stemmed from another quote of mine, which is, in a fight, always and never are lies. Number 3, of course you could just hit him in the head with your stick, but I will teach you the art. Remy Pressas. I had a hard time finding the exact quote Remy Pressas used, and I was never blessed to work with him myself. One quote I found attributed to Pressas when showing a technique was, "If it were real, you would strike, but I will show you the art." The first time Pressas' quote impacted me, I heard it from W. Hawk Hochheim, a military, police, and self-defense instructor who teaches seminars internationally. Unlike me, Hawk has worked with Pressas a lot, and he's talked about it quite a bit in his books and newsletters. According to Hawk, Filipino master and veteran stick fighter Remy Pressas used to say that you need just a few favorite fake and strike moves. Remy also said you practice your whole life for a 4-second stick fight. And for all the many Filipino techniques FMA systems have, Remy would stop, grin, and say, "Of course I could just hit him in the head with my stick." The unspoken part continues here with the original quote, "But I will teach you the art." This hits me in Kaiju Kembo. There are a lot of competitions and tournaments out there, and personally, I never liked them. Yes, They're important for your development as a fighter. But in the end, I'm not training for trophies. I'm training for physical, mental, spiritual health, and those once-in-a-lifetime, life-or-death situations that may or may not happen. So why the hell should you study a 400-year-old kung fu form when fighting has changed in the last 20, much less 40, 60, 100 years? Why should you study beyond the small subset of moves that are necessary for life-or-death situations? Because it's the art. Military and police, it's part of your job to study only the techniques that work. Then to study tactics and apply the small subset of necessary techniques to those situations where they're necessary. Don't become a technique collector. If you consider yourself a martial artist, your job is to study those workable techniques and then study the art. Learn how to fight first. Then study how people fought 20, 40, 60, 100, 400 years ago. Seek knowledge. See how it affects you. You might be surprised. Number 2, train hard, be humble, fight dirty. Senior Grandmaster Bob Maschmeyer. I first heard this quote when it was printed on Sigang Jeff Makaloiloi's t-shirts. Makaloiloi is a Kaji Kambo instructor in California who I wish I could be. But on contacting him, I found out that he had taken this quote from Senior Grandmaster Bob Maschmeyer, a Kaji Kambo martial artist who started training in 1962 and to this day continues to teach despite cancer having destroyed his voice box. For Kaji Kambo, let's break it down. Train hard. Any fighter can understand the gravity of these two words more than most people. As Royce Gracie said, your belt only covers 2 inches of your ass. You gotta cover the rest. The color of your belt doesn't matter. It's the time that you put behind it. Fight dirty. Kaji Kambo training is not about playing fair. We train first to get home safe to our families. Competition training comes later. If we scrap for real, if my life or my family's lives are in danger, don't be surprised if I hit you with a rock or bite your ear. I didn't want to be here. Be humble. I've heard gossip over the years of Kaji Kambo practitioners who entered MMA competitions in the early days, but were not allowed to mention their style, Kaji Kambo, for various reasons. But for me, the best example of being humble comes from my instructors. They never asked for their titles. Some of them absolutely hate their titles. And despite the amazing stories from their past, they just don't talk about themselves. To hear any of the amazing stuff they've gone through, you have to ask them directly, and they'll give you a kind of, yeah, it's true kind of response. Or you just have to hear it by chance from another instructor. Maschmeyer himself created this quote, train hard, be humble, fight dirty. But according to Pacifica Tribune's Esther Harris, when asked what the most important thing he hopes to pass on to his students is, Maschmeyer wrote on a piece of paper, be humble. Number 1, I'm a black belt. Here's a quote I've heard from more people than I can count, but the lesson behind it was given to me by my instructor, Grandmaster Ron Esteller. His title's Grandmaster, but he hates that. Don't tell him I called him that. Sifu, if you're watching, sorry. Here's the lesson. Lots of people who train in the martial arts quit. And years after they quit, they say, I was a brown belt. I was a yellow belt. I was a blue belt. But when someone achieves a real black belt, they stop using the word was or had. Even if they stop coming to a dojo for a decade or 30 years, they can still say with confidence, I am a black belt. It's amazing what semantics can do. One small change from I was to I am. Gracie was right. The belt only covers 2 inches. But having a black belt is incredibly different from being a black belt. That belt will one day fade away and rot. What are you? How long after your death will people remember you? I've said this in one of my videos before. People should know you're a black belt without you telling them, even if they don't know what the hell a real black belt is. This is what separates a martial artist from a fighter, and it's what separates a real martial artist from a fake martial artist. I'll leave you with one last quote I found attributed to a Shaolin monk from India named Kanishka Sharma. Honestly, I don't know if this guy can fight his way out of a paper bag or not, but I really like this quote. You train to become a warrior, not a fighter. The warrior knows the hell he can let loose, so he chooses the path of peace and respect. So make sure you can unleash hell. Then seek knowledge. I hope you guys liked this video. Please click like, share, and comment on Facebook and YouTube both. Have a good day, and if you're in Japan right now, be careful of that typhoon out there.